Oh, hello. Hello. Uh-oh. What's going on? That's not right. We need to fix that. Come on. Come on. I believe in you. I believe. There we go. That's a little better. Anyway, welcome to VTuber 101, the section we're covering you. That's right. You. We're going to go from what we were talking about in the previous video. We're going over the history of VTubing, some successes, all of that. And instead, what we're going to do is we're going to look at you and how you can sort of start to begin and to shape and mold you as a VTuber, as well as a couple of other things as well. Now, just to set your expectations, there are 101 ways to model and create and come up with the idea of the character for a VTuber, or if you're not going down the character route, to come up with some sort of a model, be it based off of your own idea or something you've seen in a show that you just want to duplicate for the giggles. There's no one way to do it. And I won't be covering all of those ways because, again, the goal of this series is to be concise. It is to condense everything down to what I feel I would need to know, and then put that out in a video, and then provide it for you, and then hopefully you get some use out of that. Also, again, too much ground to cover, too many good examples, so we're just going to take it back to basics. Now, if that's something that you want covered a little bit more of, again, I will take note of that. And when I reach affiliate, if you have any other things you'd like me to cover or touch more base on, I will. So, to help with this, we're going to follow the KISS principle again and anchor the video around these 3 points here. The anatomy of a VTuber, what makes up a VTuber, 2D versus 3D. What is the voodoo that you do? In this section, we'll be going over things that make you you. Things that are important to what it is that you want to put out there. I'm just touching up a few things because OBS decided to do a poopy. But that's okay. Hold up. We have one more thing to cover. Wait, go back, yeah. And then we'll go on scheduling. Now, scheduling is something that I feel is relevant to bring up now, because it's good to be aware of the time aspect of VTubing and how they can play into our day-to-day life. And also, again, just referencing back to the previous video, one thing we want to avoid, burnout. Because VTubing is a wonderful adventure, but you have to plan things just a little bit. Even although who am I to talk? I'm horrible at planning. But I make an effort, and I get better every time I see my mistakes. And you know what? That's what counts. Now, I'm just going to stop you right there and have a couple of conversations before we go any further. I feel like it's good to bring this up again because, again, there are certain things that I'll bring up, and it might sound like I'm saying, if you don't do this in this particular way, following this particular format, you will fail. And I bring that up now because a lot of the decisions we'll be talking about now are expensive, or can get expensive, require a lot of thinking, and given that VTubing, when you look at it through the lens of what it is, which is content creation, is a creative endeavor, I would hate to have it where you think that I'm trying to throttle you in any way. Or another way of saying that is saying, this is the box you have to stick in to be successful. Like we've discussed in the previous video, you can be massively abundantly successful in VTubing if you want to go the I'm in a box route, and that's the only thing that you do, where you just play a character that's given to you. But you can also find equally as much success, if not more, at least in my opinion, if you go down the independent route and you're pretty much just doing your own thing. Both options are applicable to you, whether you want to go through the I'm in a box agency route or private. So don't feel like I'm trying to tie you down to that. Also, things like how you should design a character, how you should put a character together, as well as certain steps and things and options. Again, this entire series just about foundations, because just like in Red Dead Redemption 2, and like building a house, all good things start with a solid foundation and evolve from there. So you may see things in here that you'll probably use as a base, and then you'll build on it or swap parts out, or you may even not use a base together, but you'll hopefully get something from it to help, build your foundation so that you can create your content creation at Empire and take over Netflix or something. I'm not saying take over Netflix, but if you do, I'd very much like to know how you did that. And once we're at this point, you may feel as though it's you. Oh, hello. Phone go ring didn't. Is that important? No. Okay. You may feel like you're set up, ready to go. You have everything you need to start life as a VTuber, and maybe you've used OBS and you've streamed the games a couple of times. That could be true. But again, just like I've said in previous videos, and just like I said in the start, this is, or maybe I haven't said it, but I feel like I should clarify it here. Again, this series is all about things that I would like to know when I was at the start line, that I would like to have known before I started, so that I could have the best possible chance of success going forward. So it's pretty much starting from ground zero. No computer, no knowledge of OBS, no nothing. But again, if you feel like you've come this far and you're ready to go, by all means go. I'm not saying you have to watch every video or any video, but if you feel like you're ready and you want to get into it, sometimes that's the best way for people to learn. Now, again, we're going to be covering a lot of options here. They're going to be stuff that I would like to cover, and I'm just not going to because, again, brevity. But you know what? If you feel like you want to go down the rabbit hole and learn, that's okay too. Now, I want you to take note of this point from the previous slide when we're talking about how the history of VTubing, what it is, where it came from, and how it evolved to what it is that we know today. We looked at how the format from the idle scene, which is pretty much the genesis point for VTubing, or at least the workflow, where all that came from, and how it evolved into what it is now, both during and post Kazuna AI. Again, in this format where you're an idol performing, playing video games, singing, dancing, etc., was the known standard, and also the interaction with fans as well sort of became its own individual look, because the performance and the interaction used to be separate, but now they're the same. And as part of that success, a lot of the styling cues and methods and ways of thinking and ways of conducting yourself did transfer over. But again, like I've been saying all throughout this series so far, you don't have to do that to be successful. So just to sort of help massage our mind into the way in which we might create our own uniqueness and as a character, or just a 3D mask at the best of things, we're going to be just going over a couple of examples, some that I've mentioned, some that I haven't, and then breaking them down within the context of this video. So, Idol, at least as far as the VTubing is concerned, is a character that performs for people, but again, you don't have to be a character that has an anime aesthetic, because a lot of the earliest styling in VTubing was following the anime aesthetic, and still continues through to this day, and those people successful in their own right. But again, we're going to cover a couple of options that sort of break that rule a little bit. And also, like I've said, don't have to be a character. You can be yourself, just wearing a VTuber mask, so to speak. And again, just touching base on previous videos, if you see someone more successful than you, who is singing or dancing or doing XYZ process here, you don't have to do that. Success is relative to what it is that we want to do, is relative to our goals. So if your goals don't dictate that you sing or you dance, don't feel bad. It's not to say that you shouldn't do it, but, you know, if you don't want to do it and you feel like you're messing up because it's something that you should be doing, just touch base with yourself a little bit and go, well, is this thing that I'm worrying about relevant to my quote-unquote career goals as a VTuber? If yes, okay, maybe that's something worth looking into. If not, not so big a deal. Now, first example we'll look at is a name that I won't bother pronouncing because my Japanese is horrible. Now, this is quite a well-known VTuber who pretty much point for point copies idol culture. From her look to her aesthetic to her way that she speaks to her singing to her activities, very, very, very much as a copy-paste. Well, not a copy-paste, but very, 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 very one-to-one clone of idols as they sit today. But, you know, again, as a VTuber, while she does sing quite regularly and has released multiple albums, she also games as well. Quite a common activity. Again, not all VTubers do it, but, you know, she does. And has taken that process of going from I'm an individual and being successful not just at one agency but multiple agencies. So just going off of styling cues, anime aesthetic, but the aesthetic very much follows the styling cues that idols would receive. So this isn't something that people normally wear, but it's very much, it's cute, it's chic, it's stylish, and it's designed to grab people's attention. Now, RNGesus is a complete shift left. Does follow the anime aesthetic, and is pretty much just like an anime version of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, but his entire character and everything that he does is largely based around video games. Now, if you don't know where RNGesus comes from, or at least that little nickname or name, or would you call it a meme? We'll put a pin in that, maybe come back to it later. But that entire shtick of RNGesus comes back to an inside joke, mainly from people who play board games, where they'll throw dice and pretty much go, save me RNGesus, which is another way of like saying, trying to defer fault from themselves for bad dice rolls and just say, oh, it's up to like the dice gods as to whether or not I will get a good roll or not. And he plays into that character very well. Now, he's majorly into D&D. As far as I know, he doesn't sing, and he also plays video games as well. So again, sort of breaking the mold there, doing his own thing, successful in his own right. Now, Cabal is a very unique example of a guy who pretty much grew his entire character from scratch. Now, when he talks about his past, it's very much everything he does is gothic/horror in style, and that comes from when one of the previous jobs he liked when he worked at the amusement sector, which was very, very closely tied to that. He grew a passion for the horror and the supernatural, and he's also a very talented artist in his own right. So he did a couple of sketches and stuff like that, and he works with another artist, and the two of them in their own way collaborate together to create the aesthetic himself. The aesthetic that you see today. Now, as far as I'm aware, he does draw all his own models. But, you know, again, let's break it down. So, he is pretty much a ghoul. Ghouls come from the supernatural, and that's sort of the character he plays into. But again, he's not really playing that character. When you look at it, even though he does use a voice, because he doesn't use his real voice on stream a lot, he's not closed off to it. It's just he prefers to do voice acting for the entire stream as opposed to just, you know, going using his natural voice. And this entire shtick is very serious person, really good at, really into helping people, plays video games, doesn't sing to my knowledge. But one of the sort of in-game shticks is he will get bullied by chat, and bullying's, I'm not sure if it's the right word, but they'll pretty much, he very much does care for his chat, and they will, you know, donate a lot, manage them, and he very much knows when it's starting to get out of control, and he's like, hey, come on guys, be responsible with your money, you have your own shit you need to take care of. And then like the inside joke is, oh, he's telling us to be careful, let's just yeet more money at him, and it's called supporting the streamer. And this is very interesting, you know, discourse between Cab the creator and his community, where it's like the entire seriousness and epicness of his character just sort of gets washed away with him, get him absolutely mad by getting yeeted with donations. Classic example I saw is he pretty much got a hype train, which is pretty much just Twitch saying, oh, this guy's getting a lot of donations, let's create this thing where if you donate so many bits, which is like the VTuber currency that you have to pay for on Twitch, you'll go up a hype train level up to, you know, infinity, theoretically. And what happened to him is he'll constantly dare his chat. It's like, oh, you won't go this high, you won't go this high, you won't go this high, and then they'll go, haha, guess again, and massively exceed it. Very unique. Yes, a very unique streamer, very unique way of interacting in this community, and you know what? He's successful in his own right. Now, going back to the Sky Tea, completely breaks the mold of style and cues yet again. Cartoonish in style, comes from her previous work life. And this is very much, she designs everything herself, so she is massively, haha. I thought you said you were her, you're not Sky Tea, joker. No, so again, really into stuffed animals, really into cute stuff, that sort of a shtick, and what she did is she adopted those themes and pretty much designed her own avatar. I believe that's something that you can sort of see in the background that I was displaying in the previous video. Now, again, and she makes this work for her in every stream she's in, because she has, I think that I've seen several, at least 2 or 3 different models that are vastly different from one another, but all follow her unique thing. Watching for a solid 10 minutes. I've been watching this for a solid 10 minutes while I wait for my... Oh. That's a very interesting story. Thanks for the support. I'm not sure how I should feel about that. Yeah. Anyway. You made me lose my train of thought. God damn it. Again, her shtick, really into D&D and stuff like that. But she mainly just, you know, plays video games and vibes, because she's what's known as a comfort streamer, where she's not bouncing off the wall, super energetic, and stuff like that. She's very much just into cruising, into vibing, and just doing her own thing. And again, that's sort of reflected in her aesthetic as well, because you don't look at this and see chibi-doka. You look at this and you see comfort. You look at this and you see warmth. You look at this and you see... you sort of feel at ease. You may not see it necessarily in this picture, but when you watch her streams and you look at the content that she creates, you go, ah, this is what a comfort stream is. Very nice. Now, you've seen a couple of different examples of some models here. Some are 2D, some are 3D. But when you're at a point where you're trying to translate your aesthetic into a design, the question you must ask yourself is, do I go down the 2D route, or do I go down the 3D route? Well, there are a couple of arguments to make both. Again, I can't cover all of them because, again, multiple points on multiple points on multiple points on, you must, to discuss them fully in a, I forget the term I used last time, but to discuss them in an encyclopedic depth outside of the context of this video. However, when we're talking about 3D, some of the pros are, it does make the performer, or the VTuber in front of you, feel more animated, feel more alive, and sort of grab your attention just that little bit more, because as opposed to them just being a static image, they're moving around, they're reacting, and they have this feel of being real, being alive, as opposed to just being a, you know, little sloth with his mouth opening and closing. And this also allows for you to add certain things to your performances, such as, playing VR games, which again, not super common, but they are out there if that's your thing. You can also go into things like VR chat, which allows you to host things like parties or events with friends where you play 3D versions of, your favorite games. Maybe you play the 3D version of that one Asian game, which name I can't remember. I remember anyway. But or you could play like a Prop Hunt, or you could play Minecraft. Oh, you're in the short distance. Oh, I just clicked to that. Let's fucking go. Yeah, so it allows you to have a wider range. Oh, so just visiting for the weekend? Super vlog. Anyway, it allows you to do a wider range of activities. However, the cons really can't be ignored with this, because while it does allow you to do a wider range of stuff and feel more animated and all of that good stuff, to do a 3D model is ridiculously expensive. Even at the low end, I've seen quotes as low as $3 to $7 grand, which have probably gone up by 20 to 50% at this point, or as high as 15 to 30 grand. As well as that, because you're both streaming to Twitch, because you're both running your game, if you're saving your video locally, that's additional stress that is on your computer already. And that also will change depending on what resolution you're using. And that all needs to be accounted for, because the last thing you want is to be streaming a game and have that experience interrupted by dropped frames. Yeah. And that's what a lot of people are doing now. With the price of VTubing models going the way that they are, people are opting to make these models themselves. But it does put a lot of strain on your computer, because you are using a very animated thing even at the low end. So it's having to render all of that, as well as render your game, as well as stream to Twitch and record video. It's a lot. Plus, if you're going into the higher end models, I have like a lot of different elements, such as different outfits, things like balls or eyes or shadows in your eyes that move. A lot more stress, especially if you're using something like TITS as well, or TITS, or Twitch Integratable Throne System. Not only does that put a percentage of load on your computer, it in itself does require a bit of testing just to make sure it works prior to launch, because while some VTubers can play that off, and I'm not saying you can't do it yourself by just, I made an oopsie because I didn't test it. If you're going for a more clean, a more polished, a more turnkey option, it is something that I would highly recommend that you test prior to implementing it in a live stream, if you are worried about that. So that is another thing that you would need to consider, because it is not necessarily a pro, it's more of a con, but a very minor one to be aware of. Now, let's go down the 2D route. Now, 2D can cost as little as $0. Like, I believe the first model I have, which I'll try to bring up now, because I think I still have it loaded. There we go. Whoops. Hello. 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 Yeah, so this is a very scuffed version of the 2D model that I started with, just because I was trying to get around Twitch. Yeah, it's super scuffed, and it was just me trying to mess around with, Twitch and via DoTube and all of that good stuff. But yeah, super scuffed, and I only used that because I didn't have a lot of money, and I was just trying to get my head around software and stuff like that, and it worked. I've gotten from not knowing how to use Twitch to this overlay that I made by myself using different software online, which is something that I'll cover in a later video. So it can cost as little as $0, which is super cash money if you're just starting out and you're trying to figure out, is VTubing for you? If it's not for you, can your computer even do it? If it's something that you want to do long term, really good, because when you look at it from a business perspective, especially when it comes to VTubing, you need to be aware of something called ROI, or return on investment, which is basically something that forces you to ask two key questions, which is, when I invest money in something, how long till that money is paid off based on my income, And then at what point will I start making profit off of this because of how much money it's drawing in? With VTubing specifically, yes, you can make money off of this, but if you're finding that you're struggling financially and stuff like that, you need to be aware that your ROI will look like absolute dog shit. So if you can't afford to spend money on it, you don't need to. You can go down this route. It's relatively easy to do by yourself. Even a hack like myself can put at least something together. And if you feel like you want to upgrade and stuff like that, even with prices going the way that they are with VTuber models, with ViaDoTube, which is what I use personally, like you can get a set of 4 images, which is eyes open, mouth open, eyes open, mouth closed, eyes closed, mouth open, eyes closed, mouth closed, which is like 4 images. Depending on the artist that you go to, that could cost as little as $120 or as much as $250, which again, it is pricey, but nowhere near the price mark of 3D equivalents. And because you're just displaying a 2D image, pretty much next to no strain on your PC, depending on how you do it, and very easy to set up. Now, the cons of 2D models is, again, if you're going for more budget options, like the one I'm using now, you can feel a little bit less animated unless you go down the live 2D route, or another option like that that has what's called a fully rigged model, which is where you have a 2D image that's been split into multiple layers. 400 for like rigging and 500. Okay, so is that just for the rigging, or is that for concept and creation? Okay. 400. Separate. Yeah, I thought they might be separate because I think the prices I were looking at were for the entire process of not just... Yeah. Yeah, and those are valid figures, I'm sure. But again, that is correct. That is a time-consuming process and can be daunting if it's not something you're immediately familiar with, but it is possible, because the great thing about VTubing, especially where we are now in VTuber history, is that it's less a question of is it possible and more finding the correct tutorial out there. And there are many, many talented people out there who have gone out of their way to say, this is how you do live 2D, this is how you do 3D rigging. There are also, I also wouldn't be surprised if there are people who say this is how you do your own tits models, where you can throw like soda cans or swords at people. But again, fully 2D models can be a very, very time-consuming thing to set up, because it's less about how do I rearrange this 3D arm and more about how do I make all these individual stacks of images work together, because it's not a solid object you're dealing with. You're dealing with multiple different layers of, you know, images and like little eyebrows and stuff like that, that if you don't rig them correctly, they can look very, very strange and alien and sort of not ruin, but I think tarnish is the correct word, the character that you're trying to create. And if that's not something that you've ever done before, again, like Vass did point out, it can be a bit much if you're doing it yourself. So if you are going to go down the live 2D route, be prepared to spend some money. It's not cheap, but if that's something you feel like you'd like to do, it is open to you. Just remember, do your research. Whether it's 2D, whether it's 3D, the last thing you want to do is send your money out to someone who says, I can do X, Y, Z, and then have either not the product that you were intending to receive, or to straight up not get the product at all. I have heard stories about that happening before, so the best thing you can do is ask around when you find an artist, try to find some reviews of their past work. If it's something that someone is using, like say you're on their website and they say, I made a character for the Flying Spaghetti Monster, for example. Try to go on the Flying Spaghetti Monster's Twitch page. If they have VODs, go through their VODs, see instances where they have used their model, and see if you like the creator's work. If that's something you want to do, go down that route, have a chat to them, try to sort something out. But try not to just jump in too blind. Just a little advice from me to you. Now, here's the part where we'll talk about the voodoo that you do. What is it that you personally want to do as a VTuber? Because all up until this point, we've shown multiple different examples of people who play board games or sing or dance, play video games. But no one streamer does everything. No one streamer does every single thing at once. There are some streamers that do, but there are also examples of people who specialize in one area and don't do any of the other areas at all. And again, just to reiterate, if you feel panic, if you feel I should be doing all the things because if you don't, I'm a failure, don't. Remember, success is goal specific, and if it's not within your goals, don't panic. But if it is within your goals, that's when you need to start asking the questions of how can I make this work in my performance. And the easiest way to objectify it that I've been able to put down on paper is to sort of, if you can, create thought bubbles around these points. Your interest. What are you interested in? What piques your thoughts? What excites you just a little bit? That you have seen in VTubing that you'd like to do, or maybe you've not seen it, but it's something you want to show as a performance. You could have a hobby that you would like to show the world through the guise of VTuber. Maybe you want to show, hey, I'm really good at finding all these random Easter eggs in Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, or maybe you want to show them how great you are at painting pictures. Maybe you want to have it where you start a VTuber band. It's not something I've seen before, but I'm sure it'll be something very unique to see as well. Or something that I found great success with is things I'd want to get better at. So just recently I started streaming Kerbal Space Program, and I'm absolute poo-poo at it. Don't know what I'm doing at all, but I want to get better at it. And people who watch my stream have picked up on that. So what they have done is that they come in and say, hey, I've seen you playing this game, you're having a good time, but do you want some guidance in this area, or you should do this? And we had this very very great back and forth of them helping me learning from them, and in that sense we've grown as a community, and my performance has just gotten richer because of it. So if you feel like you don't know the answers to any of these, maybe this could be the time for you to jot these points down and sort of start objectifying your performance just that little bit more. Again, you don't have to follow this, but now's a very good time to start thinking about what is it that I want to do, because it's one thing to go through this process of creating the model, getting the 2D or the 3D thing down packed, and then getting it ready to stream. But if you don't have, again, like I've said before, a good foundation as to what it is that you want to do, is having that model good enough? I'll leave that up to your philosophical decisions. Now, if that's a bit too weird for you to think around, if that's something that's a bit hard for you to mentally objectify, here's another way that you can think about it. You can start with a name. Again, this doesn't have to be Japanese, it can come from Africa, Mexico, Germany, whatever floats your boat. It doesn't even have to be English. And that could sort of ping ideas of how you want to create your character. You could have a background behind that character. Where's your character from? Their story. Are they the innocent girl next door? Are they Cthulhu, Destroyer of Worlds? Are they a super spy? Who knows? I don't know, but maybe you know. Then you have your theme or your swagger. Are they leaning towards a cutesy, cozy side? Horror, gothic, spicy, serious? Are they going for a more mother or for a more father vibe? In fact, one thing I've seen, especially on TikTok, is there are two streamers who are known as mothers and fathers respectively, because they are, in real life, mothers and fathers. And then people will see them playing Valorant, and they go, hey, you're a mother. And she goes, oh, yes, I am. And they have this very, I don't know how to describe it other than cute interaction, where they go, oh, you're a mother. And she goes, yes, I am. And they have this discussion back and forth about what it's like to be a mother, how old your children are, how are things going for you. And then it's very much a mother-son-daughter interaction. It's not something I've seen before, but I think it's a very interesting way of succeeding as a content creator. But again, that plays into the next point, the performance. What is it you want to do on your virtual stage? Do you want to play games, draw? Do you want to put kits together? Do you want to talk about board games? What is it that you want to do? Because this will allow you to think of different things that you can put together. Because at this point, all we've talked about is creating the character, thinking what you want to do. But maybe if what you want to do is, say, do a radio show, that's when you can start thinking about, okay, do I need to design a background? Is there an artist that I can use to do that for me? Maybe there's some examples of that I've seen in other people's streams. Things to think about that will either require additional setup, or maybe just a different way about thinking of how you can use resources at hand, because especially in games like VR Chat, there are multiple worlds, such as the default room that you start in, or you can go to areas such as the Black Cat to start your own private room, forget all the stuff that it's been used for, and then just repurpose those areas to your own means. And then there's a platform. Where is it that you want to stream? Because a lot of people commonly have streamed to Twitch, but you see equally as much people streaming to YouTube and TikTok and finding success as well. With TikTok specifically, it can get a little bit tricky to start streaming on there because they have their own requirements. But this can dictate how you make content, what content you make, because different platforms react to the same content differently. It can also, especially if you're streaming to things like TikTok, it can change how long you stream for. Because TikTok is very much click, 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 click. I want to go from content to content to content to content, which is what people use and abuse that platform for. So there's something to keep in the back of your mind. And if this is a format that you think would work for you, stay tuned. Because you can screenshot this if you'd like, print it out, write in the blanks, and start to use this as a way to both form the character or the art that you're wanting to use as a VTuber, as well as start thinking about the things that you want to do on the platform that you want to stream on. And if you feel like you'd like a copy of this slide, or any part of this, you're more than welcome to contact me on Discord, Twitter, TikTok, or YouTube. Again, the link just popped up. I didn't even need to do it. Let's go. And I'm more than happy to send you a copy of any of the slides or the entire presentation itself. I'm more than happy to do it. Just reach out and I'll get it done. Now, the last part, and of all of them, personally, I think this is the most important, is the schedule. Like I said, because the VTubing as we know it is a copy-paste of the culture that was in the idol scene in Asia, a lot of the problems propagate over as well. Namely, how much it eats up of your personal life. So, when you're just starting out, be realistic about when you can stream and how long you can stream for. Because if you can't commit to this in such a way where it doesn't destroy your personal life, that's when you need to start asking the serious questions of, one, when should I be streaming? And two, is streaming right for me? Because maybe streaming is not right for you because of it not being able to fit in your schedule. So think about when you can stream, and remember that you need to be realistic because you do not want burnout. VTubing is an adventure if you prepare right for it. Now, I want you to look at this. This is just a calendar. We've all seen it. Really good for tracking dates and events. If you're just starting out and you're not sure what days you should stream on, try find the days that you're free. Try find the days that you're not really going to commit too much, or if you the evenings that you have spare that you're just not going to fill with anything. I want you to pick at least one, if you can, 3 days. Stream for no more than 2 to 3 hours a day. Get a feel for it. Get an understanding of what it means to both schedule a stream and commit to that stream. And then if you, after we'll say a month, if you feel like you've got the handle for it, if you feel like you've gotten a greater picture of how this can fit into your life, maybe those days will change. Maybe the hours will change. But try to at the very least, set it up around 3 days a week, stream for no more than 2 to 3 hours, and see how it feels. Try not to rush into it, pace yourself, but most importantly, be realistic about how you can schedule it around your current lifestyle. Because VTubing, while you can do it as its own career, it does take years and years and years to get up to that point. So for now, cruise. Make it work around you, not make it work for you. That doesn't make any sense. Yeah. Don't let it run your life over. That's what I was trying to say. Now, this is an example of how I've scheduled my streams. I find that on these days, personally, I can stream at this time consistently, and usually I'll stream for sometimes 2-3 hours. If it's something on like a Friday or a Sunday, I'll typically stream for longer, because during that whole day, on a Saturday, Friday, or a Saturday or a Sunday, I have loads of free time. Lots of time to prep, lots of time to do research, especially for things like this, as well as to dedicate both to the game that I'm playing and the community that I'm streaming to. Shout out to Bass the Rat and Red for joining in, by the way. And this is not an exact copy of what people are currently doing, but if you go on Twitter and go through a lot of VTubers now, what they're doing is they're posting these schedules as well. Again, as a way for them to write down what it is that they're doing, as well as making their community aware, hey, on these days, at this time, I'm streaming, dot. Another thing that I found helps, especially since a lot of my viewers come from the Americas and, weirdly enough, Russia. I think I got someone from Russia tune in once, which was very unique. Unique is what it was. I find it helps to include, one, the platform that you're on, which I do anyway, but I find it's aesthetically pleasing to me to include it, as well as the time zone that I'm streaming in. Because if you were to just say, oh, I'm streaming at ... time, I actually found that a lot of people were like, oh, I tuned in at this time and you weren't here. But if you can include a time zone, that allows him to go, oh, you're streaming at that time zone, which means in my time zone, I need to be tuned on at this time. Simple. Helps a lot, has allowed a lot more people to be present when I am streaming, except if I'm doing something like this and I just randomly tweet on Twitter, oh, I'm doing a surprise stream, tra-la-la-la-la, and they have to bloody rush from everywhere. Don't like doing it, but it's just how today works. But if you are worried about professionalism, kind of a good example to start with. But there are also other examples of people who've gone down a completely different route. But again, the principle remains the same. You introduce yourself, have a picture of your character, and then go over what streaming on what day at what time. Get out of here, fly. Shoot, don't bother me. Now, if you've come this far, and you're panicking about either, can I commit to this? I don't want to set up my own model. Holy shit, those prices are expensive. I don't know what I want to do for my character. I don't know if my performance is going to be great. I am just worried, in general, about screwing up or taking the wrong step and massively cocking this up. Don't worry. Remember this quote from Bob Ross. We don't make mistakes, just happy little accidents. One of the things that Bob Ross is known for, if you've not heard of him before, is he's an artist from way, way, way back when. And all he did was paint paintings. That's his thing. That's his shtick. He's not a VTuber. In fact, I don't think VTubing was even around at the time. But when he made a mistake on a painting, when he, let's say, trying to paint a tree and did a branch funny way, or he did a hill completely wrong, as opposed to just ripping the canvas up and going, duh, this is a mistake, I never want to look at it again, go away, you are horrid to me, as opposed to doing all of that, he took a look at what he was doing and go, you know what, as opposed to throwing this all out, if I just shade this in a different way, if I maybe paint a couple of leaves here, or if I just paint a completely new tree right next to it, I've not thrown out the art, but I have made it better than it was before. Because I started with something great, I made a mistake, and then I just changed that mistake to make it work for me, because the mistake I made, I learned from, and it allowed me to grow as a content creator. And that's something he did all throughout his series, and it's something you can do too. So when you feel that you've made a mistake, realize this is a creative process, and there is no one way to do it perfectly. So try not to panic, take a deep breath, step back and go, how can I make this work for what it is that I'm wanting to do? Do I need to stop what it is that I'm doing? Can I recreate it so that it's better than it was before? How can I make this happy accident and make me grow as a creator by both learning from it and making it better? There's something to keep in mind, because creativity is not defined by a set of rules. It's defined by you, the individual, because I can't tell that your creative process is wrong, nor can anyone else. Only you can. And, again, another way that you can objectify your creativity, and be very careful with this, is try to see how it is that your people are responding to your creativity, because yes, being true to what it is that you want to do is important, but if you are concerned about how your community is responding to it, try to think, how can I be creative like I want to, but also in a way that my community will like? And that can be a very conflicting thing for creative people, because they could be like, no, they're all wrong. I only want to do this. Everyone else is incorrect. They're just dumb. Realize, as a streamer, your community is also important as well. So if they maybe aren't responding to it, maybe that could be something you need to consider. But just when you're starting out, try not to focus on that too much. Because when you're growing, people will come, people will go, people will stay, and people will say no. But always throughout that process, you will make these happy little accidents where you'll maybe make a gaffe, a technical error, maybe your art may not be what you like. Keep in mind, I started out with just nothing, and made a couple of gaffes, especially with this model as well. Especially with how I've done my designs. Like, I did completely god-awful stuff with what I'm doing, and I learned from the fact that it didn't look aesthetically pleasing to me, and my community was also having a hard time reading it, so I took a step back, fixed the happy accident, now everyone's fine. I also was very adamant that I don't want to talk. Don't like talking, not a very talkative person, especially when I'm playing a game that requires me to do a lot of thinking. I was very much not wanting to talk, but because of my goals and because of how my community was responding, I was like, okay, I need to be more animated, because my goals did not line up with my creativity. So I was like, okay, here's another happy little accident. How can I change my process so that my goals and my creativity head in the same direction? That then led me to KSP. That then led me to becoming more animated, interacting with the community more. Every mistake you make is an opportunity to grow. So don't panic about making them. Because if you panic about making mistakes, you'll never make them, and if you never make them, you'll never learn. And at this point, I'd like to thank you for watching the presentation. Again, this is all about discovering how we can create our character, and most importantly, how we can figure out what we want to do as a VTuber. In the next stream, we'll be covering a little bit more of the technical side, because we did cover a little bit of it here, but that's an entire video in itself. It will require a little bit more fine touching, a little bit more explanation. And if there's anything that you feel like hasn't been covered correctly, if there's something you maybe want to touch base on more, if you feel like you want a specific niche part to be completely exploded upon, you want it magnified, feel free to contact me. I'm available on Twitter, TikTok, Discord, YouTube, and right here at home on Twitch. We'll be right back here, same time next week, with a completely separate video going over all the technical stuff like I've said, and I hope to see you there. Thank you for joining me, and as always, stay froggy fresh. I will see you on the next stream.